Have you ever loved someone so completely that you could not imagine life without them? Have you ever felt your heart shatter in an instant, leaving you breathless, hollow, and questioning everything you thought you knew about love? That was me, Elena Halle, 7 years ago. I had everything I wanted, a boyfriend who adored me, laughter that filled our apartment, dreams we were building together, and then, in the blink of an eye, it all crumbled. His name was Daniel. He left me for a woman older, richer, more dazzling than I could ever compete with. Did he truly love her, or was it the lure of wealth and power that blinded him? Could someone you trusted with your heart betray you so completely? I did not have the answers then, but life, I discovered, has a way of giving them. Sometimes years later, when you least expect it. The first time I saw Daniel, I did not know my life was about to change. It was a rainy Thursday evening in San Francisco, and the streets glimmered under the streetlights like polished glass. I had ducked into a small Italian restaurant to escape the drizzle and to calm my restless mind. I never expected to find someone who would make my heart race in ways I had never known. Daniel was seated across the room, leaning back in his chair, his dark brown eyes sparkling as he laughed at a friend's joke. He had that effortless charm that made people look twice. There was something magnetic about him, a presence that made the room fade into the background. When our eyes met, I felt my chest tighten. I wanted to speak, but my voice caught in my throat. I have never been the type to fall quickly, to be swept off my feet by someone else's charm. And yet, standing there, watching Daniel, I felt something I could not explain. A pull, a connection. A fluttering in my stomach that told me I had to meet him. I walked toward him, my nerves trembling. "Hi," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. Daniel looked up. For a moment, the world seemed to pause. Then he smiled, the kind of smile that makes a person forget the world, that makes you feel like you are exactly where you are supposed to be. "Hello," he said. From that night, things began. We started talking, laughing, learning about each other. Daniel was everything I could have imagined in a partner. He was a photographer, creative and adventurous, but he also had a gentle side. He was spontaneous, yes, but also thoughtful. He could surprise me with a weekend getaway one day and a simple, quiet evening at home the next. With him, even ordinary moments felt extraordinary. As we spent more time together, I discovered layers of him I had not expected. He had a dry sense of humor that made even the dullest days brighter. He was caring in ways that went unnoticed by most, and he had a way of making me feel like I mattered above all else. I could not help but be drawn to him, to want him in every part of my life. Our first few dates were filled with laughter, shared stories, and the kind of connection that made it impossible to imagine life without the other. I learned about his dreams, his passions, and his fears. And he listened to mine. He made me feel like my voice mattered. I remember the evening we went to the little Italian bistro near the bay. The rain was still falling outside, but inside, the restaurant was warm and inviting. Daniel talked about a photography project he was working on, his eyes lighting up with every word. I listened, fascinated, not just by his words, but by the way he carried himself, the intensity, the focus, the spark of life in everything he did. At that moment, I realized I was falling for him. Not slowly, not cautiously, completely. And that realization was both exhilarating and terrifying. Yet, amid the excitement, a small voice of caution whispered in the back of my mind. I had been careful with my heart before, and I knew that love could bring both joy and pain. But I chose to ignore it. Daniel felt like the kind of love worth the risk, the kind that could change everything. Over the next few weeks, our relationship blossomed. We laughed together, argued playfully, and shared secrets that neither of us had told anyone else. I introduced him to my favorite coffee shop, my favorite park, my favorite bookshop. He showed me the hidden corners of the city through his camera lens, capturing moments I had never noticed before. It felt perfect, or at least as perfect as life could feel. I did not know then that life had a way of testing the things we hold most dear. I did not know that the world could shift in an instant, that trust could be broken, and hearts could shatter. I only knew Daniel, and that was enough. For now, I thought that love with Daniel was unshakable. I truly believed that nothing in the world could come between us. Those months of laughter, shared dreams, and quiet moments at home had convinced me that we were stronger than anything life might throw at us. I was wrong. It happened one evening, just as the golden lights of the city began to twinkle against the dusky sky. Daniel and I were sitting at our favorite table at Harman's a cozy Italian restaurant near the waterfront. I remember feeling happy, relaxed, confident in what we had. Daniel laughed at something I said, his eyes crinkling in that way I loved. And then I saw her, Miranda Caldwell. She entered like a storm wrapped in elegance. Her platinum blonde hair caught the light as she walked past the tables, perfectly dressed in a tailored designer suit, her heels clicking against the wooden floor. She scanned the room as though she owned it and stopped when her gaze landed on Daniel. There was something in the way she looked at him, a mix of admiration, hunger, and calculation that made my stomach knot. She did not just notice him. She studied him, as if weighing him, testing him, deciding if he was worth taking. And the terrifying part was that Daniel, oblivious to her scrutiny, smiled at me and reached across the table to hold my hand. I tried to ignore it. I tried to tell myself it was nothing, that I was imagining things. But Miranda had a presence that could not be ignored. She approached our table with the kind of poise that demanded attention. "Hello," she said, her voice smooth and commanding, carrying the faint scent of expensive perfume. "I hope I am not disturbing you. I could not help noticing you from across the room. You have a very striking companion." Daniel looked at her politely. "Thank you," he said, slightly uneasy but kind. Miranda smiled at him in a way that made my skin crawl. She was confident, poised, and utterly captivating. "I would love to get to know you better," she said, slipping her business card onto the table with perfect grace. "Perhaps you would like to call me sometime." Daniel picked it up and glanced at me, confused. Daniel, I said, trying to remain calm despite the alarm bells ringing in my mind. "She is just another person. Do not make her more than that." He nodded, reassuring me. Yet the way he held the card for a moment longer than necessary told me something had shifted. That night, as we walked home beneath the soft drizzle, I tried to convince myself I was overreacting. Daniel loved me. He would not fall for someone like her. I was wrong. Over the next few days, Daniel began texting her. At first, he insisted it was harmless. "She is just talking about photography," he told me, as if that justified hours spent on her messages. But I noticed the change. His eyes lit up when his phone buzzed. He smiled more when he was alone with it. And his presence with me began to feel distant, distracted, and absent. The messages grew flirtatious. Her words were carefully crafted, designed to charm and entice. She praised his looks, his talent, his ambition, and he responded eagerly, caught in the thrill of being noticed in a way that was different from love, different from comfort. It was dangerous. I could feel it. I could see the cracks forming. I confronted him one evening. "Daniel," I said, my voice trembling but firm, "you are texting her too much. This does not feel right." He looked at me with that look I used to love, the conflicted, apologetic eyes that seemed torn between honesty and temptation. "Elena, it is not like that. I am just talking with her, but it is affecting us," I said, frustration and fear bubbling over. "You are not present. You are distracted. I feel like I'm losing you, and I do not want to." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I do not know how to explain it. There is something exciting about her. She is different. And I do not want to hurt you, but I cannot stop thinking about her either." My heart broke in ways I had never known possible. I wanted to scream, to cry, to shake him into realizing what he was about to lose. But I also knew he was already slipping away. The man I loved was being seduced by wealth, power, and allure, and I could do nothing to stop it. Days turned into weeks. The texts became calls. The calls became meetings. I began noticing the little things. The way he hesitated before answering my questions. The way he would zone out when I told him about my day. The faint scent of her perfume lingering on his jacket. And then it happened. Daniel told me one evening, his voice low and almost pleading, "Elena, I cannot continue this anymore. I met someone else." I froze, my vision blurred, and a scream threatened to escape, but I held it back. "Who?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Miranda," he said, his eyes avoiding mine. She makes me feel things I cannot explain." "I am sorry." "I never wanted to hurt you." The words were daggers in my chest. 7 years of dreams, laughter, and love felt like they had evaporated in that moment. The man I trusted, the man I loved with every part of my heart, had chosen someone else, someone older, wealthier, more sophisticated. And he did not even hesitate. I wanted to rage, to cry, to throw everything at him. But instead I sat there numb, as he packed his things and left our shared apartment for the last time. The sound of the door closing was deafening, a final punctuation on the story I had once believed in. I spent that night alone, staring at the ceiling, wondering where I had failed, questioning if love had ever been real. But deep down I knew. Daniel had not failed me. He had chosen to betray me. And Miranda had succeeded where I had no power to compete. The weeks that followed were a blur of tears, restless nights, and hollow days. I moved, I changed routines. I tried to reclaim myself from the wreckage he had left behind. Every song, every street corner, every shared memory became a reminder of what was gone. And I swore, in the quiet moments of my heartbreak, that one day I would not be the same. That pain would not define me. That betrayal would not break me. 7 years can change everything. At least that is what I told myself over and over as I walked into La Belle Vie a chic restaurant in downtown San Francisco. I had arrived early, the soft hum of conversation and clinking glasses filling the air. I sat at a corner table, reflecting on the years that had passed. After Daniel left me for Miranda, I had thought my heart would never heal. The first months were unbearable, a blur of sleepless nights, tears, and unanswered questions. I asked myself why he had left, why he had chosen someone else over the love we had built. But slowly I began to reclaim my life. I focused on my career, my passions, and my friendships. I traveled, I explored, I laughed again. I became stronger. Not because I wanted revenge, not because I sought to prove anything to him, but because I refused to let betrayal define me. I realized that my life did not revolve around a man who could not see my worth. Daniel, on the other hand, became a memory, a shadow I occasionally revisited in quiet moments. I heard rumors over the years that his relationship with Miranda had ended, that he struggled with regrets, that he was no longer the man I had once loved. But I had moved on. I had to. That evening, however, fate had a different plan. I was enjoying a quiet dinner alone, savoring the peace I had cultivated in my life, when I saw him. Daniel. He was across the room, and the sight of him made my chest tighten. He looked different, older, more worn perhaps, but still undeniably Daniel. The same dark brown eyes, the same charming smile, but now with a subtle hint of vulnerability I had never seen before. Our eyes met, and I felt a rush of emotions I had not expected. Anger, sadness, and a flicker of the love I once had. He approached me, hesitating as if unsure whether I would allow him near. "Elena," he said softly. "I did not expect to see you here." I looked at him, my face calm but my heart racing. "Daniel," I said evenly. "You should not be here." He took a deep breath, and I saw the regret etched in his expression. Elena, I know it has been years, but I need to tell you. I was wrong. Everything I did, leaving you for her. I regret it. I was blind. Can you forgive me? Can we try again? The words cut through me, but not in the way he intended. I had healed, I had grown, and I was no longer the naive girl who would fall for empty promises. Anger bubbled up inside me, sharp and burning. No, Daniel, I said, my voice steady but fierce. You do not get to come back into my life after what you did. He stepped closer, reaching out as if to touch my hand, but I recoiled. Elena, please. I have changed. I know what I lost. I cannot live without you. That was enough. Years of pain, heartbreak, and betrayal surged through me in a tidal wave. I raised my hand and slapped him across the face. The sound echoed through the restaurant, a declaration of my anger and my boundaries. Get out, I said, my eyes burning with fury. You do not deserve a place in my life ever again. Daniel stood frozen, shock and regret written across his face. Slowly he turned and walked away, leaving me to reclaim the peace I had fought so hard to preserve. As the door closed behind him, I felt a strange mixture of relief and triumph. I had faced the man who had broken my heart, and I had stood my ground. I realized then that revenge was not about hurting him, not about making him feel the pain he had caused me. Revenge, true revenge, was reclaiming my life, my dignity, and my happiness. I smiled faintly to myself, sipping my wine, watching the city lights glitter through the window. Daniel's chapter was over. My life, my future, and my heart were mine again. 7 years had passed. And I had survived. I had grown stronger. And I would never let no one take that from me again. After Daniel walked out of **La Belle Vie***, leaving behind the echoes of his regrets, I felt a wave of liberation I had not anticipated. For years I had carried the weight of his betrayal, of Miranda's interference, of my own heartbreak. Now it was gone. I had faced the man who had shattered my world, and I had emerged unbroken. But revenge, true revenge, is never about anger alone. It is about reclaiming power, showing that the life someone tried to steal cannot be stolen. That night, as I left the restaurant, I knew I had only begun to write my own ending. Over the following months, I focused on the life I had built during those 7 years. I had climbed higher in my career, expanding my design firm into new cities. I traveled more, connecting with people who appreciated me for who I was. I surrounded myself with friends who uplifted me and reminded me daily of my strength. Daniel's name became a distant echo. I did not seek him. I did not dwell on him. But the universe had a way of reminding me of my power. It happened at a charity gala in Los Angeles, a prestigious event I had been invited to for my accomplishments. The crowd was filled with influential people, celebrities, and socialites. I walked in with confidence, a vision in a tailored gown, radiating poise and elegance. I was the embodiment of success and self-respect, everything Daniel had ever taken for granted. And there he was, Daniel, looking startled, his eyes widening as he took in my presence. His expression shifted from surprise to something resembling regret, and I could almost hear the unspoken words. I have lost her. He approached me cautiously, trying to mask the nervousness that I could see plain as day. Elena, he said, his voice low and strained. I did not expect. I cut him off with a gentle but firm smile, letting him feel the weight of the years that had passed. Daniel, I said softly, you took 7 years to realize what you lost. That is enough for me to know who you are. Goodbye. He stammered, searching for words, but I did not give him the satisfaction of seeing me falter. I turned gracefully and mingled with the crowd, speaking to influential clients, making deals, and basking in the glow of my own achievements. Daniel lingered at the edge of the room, invisible among the sea of faces. I could feel his eyes on me, but I did not look back. The ultimate revenge was not in confronting him, humiliating him, or dragging him down. The ultimate revenge was living a life so full, so rich, and so vibrant that he could never enter it again. Weeks later, I heard through mutual acquaintances that Daniel had tried to reach out, calling and messaging, asking to meet, pleading for a second chance. I smiled quietly to myself. He could try all he wanted, but I was no longer the girl who had cried for him in the dark. I was Elena Hawley, successful, independent, and untouchable by his mistakes. In the end, the story was not about heartbreak or betrayal. It was about growth, resilience, and reclaiming the power that had been stolen. I had loved deeply, I had been hurt, and I had survived. That was my victory. That was my revenge. And as I looked out over the city skyline one evening, wine in hand, I whispered to myself, I am whole. I am stronger. And no one, not even Daniel, can ever take that from me. In the end, I learned that love can hurt, betrayal can scar, and heartbreak can feel eternal. But I also learned something more powerful. Strength does not come from holding on to the past, it comes from letting go, standing tall, and reclaiming your life. And the question remains for anyone who has ever loved and lost. Will you let heartbreak define you, or will you rise above it? I chose to rise. And that truly is the sweetest revenge of all.